So the future of humanity is in your hands. Your children, your grandchildren, yes, and the future of humanity itself is in your hands. Now, it sounds like a bold statement, but think about it. We are at an inflection point with humanity right now as we barrel down the path toward artificial intelligence. It will change everything. Now, we've been here before throughout the history of mankind, but our job right now is not to ask, what will artificial intelligence do to us, humanity? Our job is to ask, what will humanity do with artificial intelligence? The choice is ours. So my premise for you, and what I need your help in doing, we need to elevate human learning at the same rate that we elevate human learning. In other words, human intelligence rising as we've never seen it before at the rate of artificial intelligence. Harness the power. That's the big idea. Not to run away from it, not to fear it, but instead harness the power of this technology to be able to change the way we teach and learn, because ultimately human knowledge is the most powerful force on earth. And because ignorance ultimately is the root cause of virtually every problem we face on the planet. The ancient philosophers knew this, our founding fathers knew this, Jefferson, Franklin, even Yoda knew this when he was talking to Luke. He said, fear leads to the dark side. And it's so true, because ignorance leads to fear, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hatred, and hatred leads to violence. We're in this cycle. And we are better than this. Humanity is better than this. So the universal access to knowledge is now completely within our reach. Humanity has the opportunity to have unlimited learning represent unlimited opportunity truly for all. How? Well, education has to change. The only thing standing, and let me give you a little background on me and why this is so important and why I'm a living example, because I grew up in a 3-room shack with no running water. That wasn't the only problem. The house was condemned when I was 10 years old. My father passed when I was 12. And the only thing standing in the way of me and unlimited opportunity was myself and the ability to embrace an education, which I did. And the opportunity there was that teachers believed in me. Libraries opened their doors. Books opened up a whole world that I could have never imagined, to the point that I was able to have the privilege of leading 2 Fortune 500 companies. This is what's possible with the power of education. So modern education, if you think about it, was built, I was the beneficiary of a good public education system, but it was built for the industrial age. It was efficient, it was practical, it was engineered to push everyone toward the average. Think about it, standard test, the bell curve. If you're on the front end of the bell curve, you were bored to tears. If you're on the back end of the bell curve, you were probably relegated to held back or perhaps labeled. That was the reality of the system. We today have an opportunity to change this, to transform it, just as the Rockefellers did 100 years ago. You see, the current system, we have to change because it's failing us. We're trying to make incremental improvements, but here's the reality. 70% of our children in America in the 4th grade are not reading at 4th grade level. 40% of them are reading below basic. They're functionally illiterate, if you will. We're in the middle of the pack today among developed nations in math. America, there's zero excuse for this. And the reality is, fewer and fewer of our children are going to college, 39% today. China now has 61% of their 18 to 24-year-old population in college. So we're basically losing the battle and potentially the war for intellectual capability, intellectual capital. Why is this important? Do you worry about national security? Think about it. How are wars going to be fought in 50 years? You think we're still going to be out there with tanks and bombs? Think hypersonic vehicles, cyber, space. Who's going to have the technology to keep up? from a national security perspective. How about global competitiveness? The world is shrinking because of technology. We're opening up markets all over the world, the continent of Africa exploding with opportunity. Who's going to take advantage of it? Who's going to have the horsepower, the intellectual capability to capitalize on those markets? And then finally, how about one that's near and dear to all of us, health and welfare? If you don't like poverty, I don't. How about homelessness? How about healthcare issues? How about crime? All of these are a symptom of ignorance. Ignorance carries a price, a huge price, and we all pay for it. Why? So, we have an opportunity to be able to change this. Because if you don't like the cost of education, you'll like the cost of ignorance even less, far less. But we can do something about it. It is within our control. Now, I had the privilege of leading a couple of companies. I had the privilege of, I'm not an educator, but I know the power of scale. And I know the power of technology to leverage that scale and to do what was otherwise impossible. So think about how corporations manage global entities or even national entities. They build an operating system. They build a network. They are able to access data. And what does this do for a corporation? For 7-Eleven, it allowed us to manage nationally or internationally with scale. You can leverage your buying power. You can leverage your systems. You can have efficiency. But it also allowed us to be more nimble locally because we had data to make better decisions. Data to make better decisions, both local decisions, national decisions, and throughout the chain. Why not do this with education? Today we have 13,000 independent school districts, each charged with building their own cybersecurity, coming up with their own software packages, accounting packages. This makes no sense. You would never run a corporation like this. Why do we allow ourselves to run a school system like this, a national school system? So here's the plan. Here's the opportunity to build an operating system, as any corporation would, for a challenge like this. And here are 4 layers of the operating system. First is access. In other words, you've got to be able to provide broadband, let's say digital, to power every school in the system with high-speed internet capabilities. Blackboards and books were the technology of the age a long time ago. We shouldn't fear technology. Those were the technologies of the industrial age. Today, the technology is LED screens, interactive capabilities in the classroom that provide access to teachers to better tools and to students to better tools than we ever have had in the history of man. What about the second layer of this, which is agency? Here's the most important. Don't take away the teachers, don't take away the classroom, but give them the tools to be able to level up as they do in their video games. They know how to do this, to be able to learn and to embrace learning, to move ahead as quickly as they wish to move ahead. And then third layer, administration. Here's how we pay for all this. As taxpayers, this should mean a lot to you because the inefficiency, the redundancy throughout 13,000 independent school districts is tremendously costly. And by putting an operating system in place, we can achieve the efficiencies administratively to be able to smooth out the system and reduce cost. And then finally, this is the most exciting, the learning exchange, the fourth layer of this infrastructure. Imagine the very best tools being available to every child anywhere at any time. Now, today, wealthy parents have figured this out. You never let your kid go into the first grade without being able to read and write with an AI tutor if necessary. A kid on the other side of town can't afford that. We can make this technology at scale available to virtually anybody. So the idea would be 4 layers of this system, and it's not 4 layers that are run by a government. It's basically doing the government doing what the government does best. So what's possible if we do this? Let me pique your imagination. Imagine a student who's always ahead of the curve. They can keep leveling up. They can learn at their own pace. Imagine that student who was behind. Disabilities could be virtually eliminated. Learning disabilities are mitigated by the ability to teach the way a child learns. and to alter that based on their ability to learn. We know this is possible. We prove progress, failure, truly no child left behind. Imagine workforce pathways where you can learn HVAC, plumbing, nursing, coding. You can keep a perpetual record from the time you enter class throughout your career that allows you to keep learning, truly lifetime learning. Imagine if instead of looking at K through 12, we look at K through life, and we have the ability to keep learning with these learning tools. So imagine now if we turn scholarships, instead of rewards at the end, we had to write a check for $10,000. Why not give 20-cent increments? They pass tests along the way. Build a Scholar Dollar account that can right into the new America account, America Fund that was established for our children to allow them to pay for their future education. You see, when a child from rural Appalachia has access to the same learning tools as a child in the most affluent suburb in America, that is the greatest equalizer of opportunity since the printing press made books available to every one of us. A challenge of this scale is not new to America. Eisenhower did it when he recognized the power of the interstate to be able to create a highway system for national security, global competitiveness. Roosevelt electrified rural America, places like this that didn't have power before the 1950s. And Roosevelt said, if we're going to compete on the world stage, America has to have power, and he did it. And Kennedy in 1962 stood up in Rice University and said, we're going to put a man on the moon in this decade, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. This is what we can do. Now is the moment to do this for education, not a government takeover, not trying to tell teachers, students, or districts what to do. It's doing what government can do to harness the power of infrastructure. So I need your help to take the politics out of education, to take demanding solutions to your local, state, and national representatives, not casting blame, just suggesting we can do this and asking for their help. I have the way if you have the will. So our common goal should be to achieve, and this is possible, 100% literacy in America. Why not? How about if we share the common goal for 100% illiteracy and return American students to the top of the world in math and science? We can do this. Why not? We must. And then once we do this, why not share this capability with the world? Why? Because ignorance in any country, in any language, in any culture leads to fear, leads to anger, leads to hatred, leads to violence. And because the most powerful weapon on the planet is not a bomb, it's not a treaty, it's not an army, it's a child who knows how to read. So I grew up with nothing, but education gave me everything, and every child on this planet deserves that same chance. We have the technology, we have the resources, we have the roadmap. All we need, the will. I'm seeking your help. This is our moonshot. This is our interstate. This is our rural electrification, except this time we're electrifying the mind, the human mind. Education is not just policy. It's not just economics. Education is freedom. Let's make it available to anyone, anywhere, anytime. Help me help humanity itself. Thank you.